Hello everyone and welcome to another booking video, and this booking video is on the Smackdown mid-card sort of, but it's just about making Smackdown better and also making Madcap Moss a proper star, because he could be, but he's not. So we're going to start in the present, as in at Wrestlemania Backlash 2022, which is on Monday. So we're going to start there, and I'd have Moss beat Corbin in about 5 minutes. On SmackDown, he comes out and says he's had enough of being a joke, and he says that he's changing his name back to Riddick Moss. He's changing his gear back to being not like a dickhead. And Moss is then going to have a match with Apollo and Aziz, because why not? I think we give them a handicap match, which Moss wins in about 15 minutes, pins Aziz. Next week we've got a backstage segment with Jinder and Shanky, who walk over to Apollo and Aziz, who are arguing over whose fault it was for the loss. Obviously it was Aziz's. Apollo says that he'd like to see Jinder and Shanky do it better than them, which we then get the match, and Moss beats Shanky in particular, but in a handicap match, in about 10 minutes. So then Jinder and Shanky are arguing, which goes along with real life. Then Apollo and Aziz come over laughing at him, saying about how Moss beat them quicker. Aziz and Shanky, who obviously were both used as the reasoning for the team losing, both turn around and say, "Well, we can beat him together," and they lose in about 5 minutes, so they really couldn't. Backstage, Apollo and Jinder say that was pathetic, and next week they're going to show them how it's done. We then get Apollo and Jinder losing to Moss in about 15 minutes. Jinder gets pinned. Backstage, Apollo says it's all Jinder's fault that they lost, and at the next premium live event, which is Hell in a Cell, I believe, he's going to beat Moss one-on-one. Moss wins after half an hour classic. I'd also then have Jinder and Shanky against Apollo and Aziz. Yeah, you can turn Apollo face if you want to do that feud, but I mean, you can do it with them both heels. But yeah, I just have them in a feud, and we move Madcap Moss on, or Riddick Moss on. He changes his name back to Riddick Moss. So yeah, I'm doing that simply because I think giving him some handicap wins should make him feel a bit bigger of a deal. At the same time, while all those handicap matches are happening, Ricochet is not showing up on SmackDown. They're just not booking him. He doesn't show up until the Go Home show, where he unscripted shows up and says that he's sick of this shit. He's sick of the Intercontinental Championship being treated like a joke. He hasn't been on the show in weeks. The IC title didn't get defended at Mania. He's had enough of it, and he doesn't care who he faces, but he wants to defend the title at Hell in a Cell. And Shinsuke Nakamura comes out to accept the challenge, because I think that would be a really, really good match. At Hell in a Cell, they have match of the night, possibly match of the year for WWE. I don't think it's going to top anything. It will top other things, but I think that it's too early on in the year to say that they can definitely have a match of the year contender. But yeah. After about 45 minutes, Ricochet only just manages to retain. Also in Hell in a Cell, we get the kickoff show, which is Jinder and Shanky versus Apollo and Aziz, which Apollo and Aziz win, which also furthers the split between Jinder and Shanky. Post Hell in a Cell, Ricochet starts a feud with Sami Zayn, who says that Johnny Knoxville isn't here to save Ricochet's title reign. So yeah, he just keeps doing things to annoy Ricochet, all the way through to the next Premium Live event, which is Money in the Bank. On the way, we get Butch running into and attacking Madcap Moss. He was just walking around backstage. At Money in the Bank, we get the New Day and Madcap Moss, or Riddick Moss, I guess. I keep calling him Madcap because that's what his name is right now, but Riddick Moss. I'll get it one day. We get New Day and Riddick Moss versus Sheamus, Ridge, and Butch in a solid 15-minute 6-man tag match. The IC title match is again match of the night. Takes about 30 minutes and Ricochet wins. The Money in the Bank match on the men's side has Cody, Rollins, Orton, Corbin, Apollo, and Nakamura. Corbin wins. It might not make a hell of a lot of sense at the moment. I'd say give them qualifying matches. So Corbin has to beat somebody to get in. So it makes sense. So it doesn't make a great deal of sense as to why he's winning now, but it will later. It really will later. The kickoff show also has Jinder beating Shanky just to pay that feud off. We move to SummerSlam, where we have the following feuds. We've got Ricochet versus Moss for the title, Roman versus Drew for the title, RK Bro versus the Usos for all the titles. All three matches get 30 minutes and are great. Moss, Roman, and the Usos win. Also on the show, we've got Corbin versus Nakamura, Apollo versus Sammy, Sheamus versus Butch, because Butch keeps costing him matches. They all get about 15-20 minutes each, and they're all solid. Corbin, Sammy, and Sheamus win. Post SummerSlam, Sammy once again says he wants the IC title. Moss keeps saying, "You lost to Ricochet. I'm not giving you that." Also, did he just lose? Yeah. No, he didn't. He won. That's alright. But yeah, he lost to Ricochet anyway. No. And eventually Sammy gets him to make the match official at Clash at the Castle. Which again, it's 20 or 30 minutes and is great. Also on the card, we've got Sheamus versus Ridge versus Butch, which gets 20 minutes. It's really, really good. Sheamus wins. We get Ricochet versus Corbin, also really good 15-minute match that Corbin wins. Nakamura versus Apollo, it's a really good 15-minute match. And the main event is Roman versus Drew, which Roman wins after 30 minutes of a great match. Moving on, right, so now we don't actually have what the pay-per-view names are. So I think at this point we'll be going to Saudi Arabia. So it'll probably be Crown Jewel. So we're going to say that it's Crown Jewel. We've got a Superstar Shake-Up going into it. So Bobby Lashley comes over to face Moss, who wins after a 30-minute spectacle. Also on the card, we've got AJ Styles and Finn Balor versus the Usos for the titles. Usos win after 30 minutes. Corbin versus Sheamus in a 15-minute match that Sheamus wins. Roman versus Rollins, which Roman wins after 30 minutes. Rollins almost wins, but the Usos distract him and Roman wins. Moving on to Survivor Series, and we get the Champ versus Champ stuff. Unless the titles are unified, in which case then they defend their belts. So we get Moss versus Theory, which is a 30-minute match. Moss wins, match of the night, or one of, I don't know. It just has to be a really good match. That's basically how this is going. Book really good matches, make the storylines make sense, and build more stars. Also, we have the Usos defending against the New Day. Usos retain after 30 minutes of New Day Uso awesomeness, like they always have. Main event is Roman versus Cody. Roman retains after 30 minutes, with Cody once again getting distracted like Rollins did. You could be continuing that feud over on Raw. We've got TLC next, I guess. It's Sheamus versus Moss, which Sheamus wins after an amazing 30-minute match. We also have Ricochet versus Bobby Lashley, which Lashley wins after 20 minutes, and Ricochet coming so close to picking up the win. We've also got a triple threat match between Drew, Seth, and Cody, which main events. Goes for 60 minutes, is stupendous, as Pat McAfee would say. And Cody wins because why not? I just put that match in because I quite want to see that. So Cody wins because I think Cody should win. At day one, we get a match that's 12 months to the day of happening. So at day one in 2022, we got Moss versus Drew. We get that match again. Except this time we get Madcap Moss winning, or Riddick Moss winning after 30 minutes. It was a great match. Also on the card, we get Sheamus versus Lashley, which Sheamus wins after Lashley spears the post and turns around into a bro kick. 20 minutes, I'd give that match. We're giving them time. That's another thing. We're giving them time to have these great matches. So yeah. Cody and Rollins team up and go after the Usos tag belts, but due to them not being a team, the Usos retain after about 15 minutes, and Brock returns to go after Roman. Roman wins after about 30 minutes. That's the best match that the two of them have had, just so we can sort of say that's done, because after Mania this year, shit happens. At the Rumble, we get Sheamus versus Moss, Usos versus Nakamura, and the returning Boogs. He returned after the Usos claim that they've beaten everybody. So yeah. We also get a returning Big E versus Roman Reigns, and also the Rumble matches. So the opening match is the IC title match, which lasts for about 30 minutes. Sheamus wins after the Usos cost Moss the title. The Women's Rumble, which either Liv or Rhea should win, I think. The Usos lose their tag titles to Nakamura and Boogs, who beat them clean with no interference. Takes about 20 minutes. Then Roman beats Big E after about 20 to 30 minutes. It was also clean. And the Men's Rumble match, which The Rock wins, because obviously. Moving on to Elimination Chamber. At this point, I am just going to focus on Riddick Moss, because I think we've got SmackDown in a good spot. There should be more stars. The IC title feels like it's a big belt, and just they're putting on great matches. It's going good. I also didn't mention it, but Corbin also goes back to being Baron Corbin and not looking like a dickhead. Right about the same time that Moss does. So yeah. Moving on to the Chamber, and the main event is announced to determine the competitor who will fight the undisputed WWE Universal Champion after WrestleMania, which is obviously Rock and Roman. In this match, we've got Drew, Cody, Rollins, Moss, Lashley, and Edge. Moss and Lashley started out, followed by Drew, Rollins, Cody, and then Edge. Nobody gets eliminated until after Edge comes out. And Moss eliminates everyone. The order that happens is Lashley, Drew, Cody, Rollins, and then Edge. So basically in the order that they came out. So yeah. After Rollins is eliminated though, so it's just Moss and Edge left, the Usos break in super kick to Madcap Moss, or Riddick Moss, I keep saying Madcap. While the ref's checking on Moss, it doesn't allow Edge to win. And so Moss pulls himself back up using the turnbuckle. Edge goes for a spear, gets out of the way, posts him, hits him with his finish, and wins. At WrestleMania, we get Moss versus Edge, which main events night 1, and Moss wins after about 30 minutes. It's match of the night, proving why it should have been on last. And night 2 is obviously Rock versus Roman, which Roman wins after a great match. A year on from where this booking started, which is WrestleMania Backlash 2022, so we're now at WrestleMania Backlash 2023, we get Roman versus Moss for the title. That's the main event, obviously. Side note, we've got the winner of Night 1 versus the winner of Night 2 of WrestleMania, so that's something. Riddick Moss wins after a 60-minute match. Despite the Usos coming down trying to get involved and all that, he still manages to win. Post-match, he attacks Roman and the Usos because Roman probably told the Usos to interfere and the Usos interfered. So it's sort of, it makes sense, but he attacks them and turns heel. You could turn the Bloodline face at this point. And at the end of that, Moss is standing there, and Corbin comes in, cashes in Money in the Bank, wins the title. Which then moves us on to, again, probably Hell in a Cell. We don't know what the pay-per-view system is after SummerSlam, I think. So, I'm going to just say that it's Hell in a Cell because that's what it is this year. So, yeah, at Hell in a Cell we get Madcap Moss versus Baron. We get Riddick Moss versus Baron Corbin. Moss wins, takes back his title. Yeah, I think that's great. And from there, you've got Moss, who is a heel, and everybody that he's faced previous can now go after him as the face to his heel. It adds a different dynamic to everything, so everything is fresh. And yeah. So, with all that, I think that SmackDown's mid-card has been fixed. The IC title means something. The tag division is better than ever. We have a new main eventer in Riddick Moss, who could be a massive star. I think it would be very entertaining to watch all this happen. And I mean, I've done that in a year, or in a, technically a year and a bit with Hell in a Cell, but it's just to pay off the fact that Corbin is Corbin. Yeah, so that has been my booking video. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, follow the Facebook, Twitter and Twitch, links those are in the description. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comment section down below, and other than that, thanks for watching, goodbye and good night.